Uh-oh. Okay, we'll start with this. Newly crowned WBC champion Stephen Fulton responded to Nick Ball, telling him, "We're gonna find out what he being Nick Ball, is really about very soon."
Responded?
Yeah, he responded because Nick Ball expressed an interest in fighting Stephen Fulton for the green belt he should have won in the Rey Vargas fight.
The fight he thinks he should have won.
Rey Vargas has since been relegated to a champion in recess, and Brandon Figueroa was elevated to full champion, at which point Stephen Fulton fought him for a second time and beat him for a second time. Now he's got the green belt, and Nick Ball wants to take it from him. Stephen seems receptive.
He seems open to the fight.
The unification match, but that's not the only unification match he's eyeing. He also mentioned the WBO champion Rafael Espinoza, asking, "No one person called out Espinoza?" Oh, okay.
That's not true. Nick Ball mentioned fighting Rafael Espinoza. He's on his radar.
The WBO champion, Espinoza, he's the tallest featherweight champion there's ever been. And I just think you so often use your height to your advantage. Yeah. Would that be such an interesting fight? Is that something that interests you?
Yeah. I need a pair of stilts first. And then I'll get in there with him. But nah, that'd be an interesting fight, yeah. I think it'd be a good one to make as well, because he's that tall and I'm that small, so everyone would be like, wow, what's going to happen here? But smaller guys are harder to hit, so it'd play out in my favour, I think. So we'll just have to wait and see.
How do you use your almost disadvantage to your advantage? Like, how do you make it work in terms of your height?
Yeah, just my explosiveness, my legs, yeah, my explosiveness in and out. Everyone thinks like I just come forward and fight. I can be in and out. I've got fast feet. I can jab. Out jab people. I can out jab 6'4" people off shoulder. So yeah, things like that, and just me training and listening to Paul, all the drills that we do in the gym, and yeah, and always believing in yourself.
Making sense of all of this, it would appear that the featherweight champions are finally targeting each other. Nick Ball is targeting Stephen Fulton. Stephen Fulton's targeting Nick Ball. Stephen says it's multiple champions in this weight class. They just know who the bigger paycheck is going to be. They can be confident all they want, but they know whose name rings bells. That is a fact. It's other champions, but they're not draws. Correct me if I'm wrong.
There's really only one draw as far as the champions at featherweight, and that's Nick Ball. He's the only one main eventing, headlining his own shows in front of his own hometown crowd. He's got that much drawing power, which is more than we can say for Stephen or Angelo Leo or Rafael Espinoza.
Let's talk about the fights. Nick Ball seems receptive to a Stephen Fulton fight, and the interest is mutual. I would say that between Stephen Fulton and Rafael Espinoza, the more winnable fight is Stephen Fulton.
Credit to him for becoming a two-weight champion in his last fight and beating Brandon Figueroa for a second time, but beating Brandon at featherweight doesn't make you the best in show, because you already beat him at super bantam, and Brandon himself never established himself as the most dominant champion of this division. He was just one of four, like Stephen is now. So why is Stephen more beatable than somebody else?
The two most beatable champions at this weight, I'd say, are Angelo Leo, who was beaten by Stephen Fulton, and Stephen Fulton, who was beaten by Naoya Inoue.
Part of what makes them the two more beatable champions at the weight is that they're both super bantamweights that moved up. Neither of them have the same kind of firepower as a Rafael Espinoza, and neither of them are as battle-tested at this weight as Nick Ball. Nick Ball's been in there with 2 featherweight champions.
Ray Vargas when he had the WBC and Ray Savage when he had the WBA. That makes him more battle-tested than either Stephen Fulton and Angelo Leo at this weight.
Ball versus Fulton.
Now, Stephen Fulton's obviously the more cerebral fighter of the two, the more technical fighter of the two, but not the bigger puncher, and I don't think the better physical specimen. Nick packs a big punch, and he takes a decent punch as well. He's durable. You have to be a pressure fighter, a successful one.
Nick Ball is.
In terms of technical ability, yeah, he's quite limited. What you see is what you get, but you don't always need to be a technician to win the fight. And oftentimes, pressure fighters are discounted because they seem simple outside the ring, but it's not so simple to deal with them inside of it. And I wonder if Stephen Fulton would be able to keep him off.
Well, he kept off Brandon Figueroa.
In fairness, he did, but Brandon Figueroa sucks. And I've been saying that for a long time. I wonder that Ball versus Fulton won't end up playing out like Villa versus Rashidi Ellis. It's a similar stylistic matchup. The bulldozer versus the finesse fighter.
How that usually goes is the finesse fighter gets off to a decent start, but eventually the pace catches up to them, and finesse fighters, not being that big on power, they can't keep the pressure guy off.
Before you know it, they're getting worn down, run down.
Seen that more than once.
Is that what we'd see in Nick Ball versus Stephen Fulton? There really is only one way to find out. The more intriguing matchup, I'd say, and the better action fight would be Espinoza versus Ball.
Oh, that's an action fight. That's a shootout.
Pressure guy versus pressure guy, but the discrepancy in height makes it a David and Goliath situation to where Nick Ball's best bet to land punches on Rafael Espinoza is to make himself an even smaller target than he already is. Force Rafael to punch down to hit you by bending at the waist, bending at the knees, tucked behind a peekaboo guard so you can come over the top with looping shots. And even then,
it's a tall order, pun intended. You've got to get inside on Rafael, way on the inside where his long arms can't help him.
In the crawl space, the shorter, stumpier fighter has the advantage because those short arms can string together combinations much faster, since the little guy don't need as much room to work, don't need as much room to throw punches like a taller, longer fighter. The caveat is, I think Rafael packs a lot more firepower than Nick Ball.
Getting inside is going to be difficult because he's got to come under heavy fire to do it. When you're the one coming forward, you're likelier to get hit.
Nick Ball is likely to get hit and hit hard, trying to close the distance on Rafael Espinoza. I give Rafael the edge over most of these guys, if not all of them, for the time being, but given his statuesque frame, you do have to wonder how much longer will he be able to make this weight?
Make it healthy.
He's a big boy, and at least momentarily, I identify Rafael as the most dangerous champion of the 4 champions at this weight. Which ones will end up unifying with each other first?
Beats me.
Bringing us back to the beginning, Stephen Fulton seems to have unification matches on the brain.
Seems open to them.
But how much is it going to cost either Queensbury Promotions or Top Rank to get their respective champions a fight with Stephen? We'll just have to wait and see.
Elsewhere in the world of boxing, WBO President Gustavo Olivieri took to his social media and stated, "We have confirmed Terence Crawford will not return to 154 and will relinquish his interim WBO title upon the official announcement of Canelo versus Crawford. Therefore, his mandatory challenger status is moot."
I will recommend to the WBO's Championship Committee that the current #1 world-rated contender, Xander Zayas, be designated the mandatory challenger in the junior middleweight division. If designated, the winner of Fundora versus Booker must fight Zayas within 120 days after their bout to discharge the mandatory.
Well, that doesn't really give Samson Lukowicz and his charge much time to sandbag it, drag their feet. They're gonna have to answer to Xander. I expect that he will be installed as the Mando.
I said this was gonna happen. Sebastian Fundora doesn't appear to be going anywhere.
As of right now, 154 is the place to be. We'll see in the future. Right now, I can't even make it anything higher than I want. So 154 is the War Reserves have.
154, one of the hottest divisions out right now.
Doesn't seem to have any plans of moving up in weight and campaigning somewhere else. So If he wins this weekend, he will have Xander Zayas to answer to, and he's got 120 days to do it. Is it gonna happen?
I'm not convinced it will. Because he has 2 alphabet titles, he could always drop the brown one and keep the green one.
Though if he does, the situation via the World Boxing Council isn't much better. Virgil Ortiz is WBC interim champion. He's the guy closest to challenging Sebastian for the green belt, and ranked right behind him is Sergey Bohachuk, who we all know is no slouch.
Sergey's ranked at number 1. Xander Zayas is ranked at number 2.
Unbeaten Charles Conwell, who I hear is very good in his own right, he's ranked at number 3. Jesus Ramos is ranked at number 4. It's a proverbial gauntlet anywhere you look at 154, to where even though Sebastian says that he has no plans of moving up, fighters tend to say one thing today and another thing tomorrow.
And he is a Samson Lukowicz fighter. We all know how protective of his fighters Samson Lukowicz can be, to where you have to wonder if he would allow him to fight Xander, if he would allow him to fight Virgil.
Being honest, I think they both beat him. I think if Xander gets Sebastian in the ring, he wins a points decision. And I think if Virgil gets him in the ring, he stops him, he knocks him out. In similar fashion to Brian Mendoza, when he knocked out Sebastian. I like Sebastian. He seems like a good kid, but as a fighter, he's got his limitations. He's got his pros, and he's got his cons.
The biggest one is his manager, Samson. To where Samson's gotta know, those are both risky fights for your fighter. So for losing, trying to hang on to one or some of those belts, why not just move up the middle and maybe you fight Lara, Erislandy Lara, who's what, 40-something years old now?
He's got the WBA title. He doesn't seem to be otherwise preoccupied with anything. He's just in limbo. Fundora versus Lara seems to me to be a distinct possibility, because it's hard to imagine that Samson would allow Sebastian to fight either Xander over there at Top Rank or Virgil over there at Golden Boy.
I don't think he would send Sebastian to those platforms willingly, so there could be a purse bid. And if there is one, does he win a bidding war with Top Rank? Does he? Does he win one with Golden Boy?
If he wins this fight this weekend, it only gets worse for him if he stays at junior middle.
2 belts means 2 mandatories, 2 guys that want what you've got. And you've got to answer to the both of them. One way or another, it's fight or flight after this weekend.
Elsewhere in the junior middleweight division, swinging like an idiot, Tim Kazoo's brutal assessment ahead of the most important fight of his career. Don't come out swinging like an idiot. That's Tim Tszew's blunt assessment on what he needs to change as he prepares for what he describes is the biggest test of his professional boxing career against Joey Espensor. Meanwhile, the masked head can confirm the 2023 Fight of the Year rematch between Brandon Gatch and Liam Taliva will be the co-main event for the April 6th pay-per-view in Newcastle. Coming off of back-to-back losses, including a stunning third-round knockout by Bakram Murtazaliev, Tszyu says he thought he was going to blast the hard-hitting Russian out in just a couple of rounds. What I did in round 1, I should have done in round 8. Tszyu told his masthead after coming face-to-face with Spencer for the first time in Australia on Wednesday. That's when they're a bit more tired, they're a bit weaker. That should have been done after I smacked them in the body a few more times. When their eyes are going to the other side of their head, that's when I should have done what I did in round 1.
Put simply, Tim Tszyu got caught and he didn't recover, and it was just all downhill from there. He came out guns blazing, thinking this guy was just a pushover. And he wasn't.
I came out swinging like an idiot. I was overexcited. Don't fight like a cunt head. Another loss would all but end Tszew's career. The dangerous Spencer, who describes himself as a boxer brawler, has only lost once to the super talented Jesus Ramos in 2023.
Yeah, I saw that fight. Jesus kicked his ass.
Spencer was named Prospect of the Year twice, and some in Australian boxing circles have questioned why Tszyu didn't target an easier opponent for such a crucial fight. It's going to be a hell of a fight, Tszyu said. This is the most important fight of my life. There's so much on the line and so much to look forward to. This one feels different. Questions have been asked about Tszew's mindset as well. After being dropped 3 times against Murtazaliev, but the 30-year-old laughs them off now.
He's the kind of guy he's gonna put on a brave face, irrespective of the circumstances. It's what I like about him.
But this is a make or break fight for Tim Tszyu. On the other side of this is the rest of his boxing career, and the rehabilitation effort is in full swing next month.
Not just for Tim either, but for Keith Thurman as well.
You know, he blasted Brock Jarvis out of there. Didn't take too long to do it, but that's not saying much because Liam Botto knocked out Brock Jarvis, and he actually did it in less time than Keith Thurman. That if what Keith wants to do is prove to the world that he's still got it, it's gonna take more than knocking out Brock Jarvis.
Same applies to Tim. It's gonna take more than beating Joey Spencer.
Mentally, I'm alright, he said. Don't stress, it's all good from this side. Just need to be smarter. I've got so much left to prove. I know what I possess. It's just about showing it and letting the world know we never left. The easygoing Spencer touched down in Sydney earlier last week and watched Tszyu's brief workout at Bondi Boxing closely on Wednesday afternoon. The pair first met in 2022 as Tszyu prepared to fight Terrell Gausha in Minnesota. Spencer fought on that same card as well as past opponents Murtazaliev and Brian Mendoza. Spencer said they met at the gym but didn't think they'd eventually be fighting one day. He was a bit further ahead of me. He was getting ready for a title shot and I was more of a prospect, Spencer told this masthead. He had a good hype, good skills, and a great name. Anyone who's in my division with a name or hype, I want to fight. A win over Spencer tees up a potential long-awaited showdown with Keith Thurman. And Spencer says the pressure is all on the Soul Taker.
Kind of.
These guys that Tim is supposed to be fighting in his next 2 fights, very different styles, very different fighters. I mean, Spencer is a brawler, and Keith Thurman is a boxer, a mover, but he can punch.
At least well enough to knock out Brock Jarvis.
They've had that Keith Thurman plan for a long time, and it's my job to spoil it, Spencer said. They've got their plans, but I'm sure he's not overlooking this fight. He's in the top 10. A win will put me in the top 10 and line me up for where I want to be. Then, there will be great opportunities after that. The pressure is all on Tim, definitely. I don't have any pressure. He's in a heavy spot right now. He's got to win this fight for his career, for what he holds up and represents. He's got a country he represents and a name he represents. That holds a lot of weight. He has to fight through that, and there's a lot of pressure involved with that. We'll see how he comes through.
The bottom line is, if Tim Tszyu can no longer handle the likes of a Joey Spencer, he may as well hang them up now.
And if he actually makes it through that fight, it doesn't stop there. Then you have to fight a more experienced fighter than yourself in Keith Thurman, albeit an older fighter and a smaller fighter, all the same. You have everything to prove.
He's got to do it.
This fight, unlike the Thurman versus Jarvis fight, will be aired on the Amazon platform
as a non-pay-per-view, nor should it be for Americans.
And I'm interested, I am intrigued to see what, if anything, does Tim Tszyu have left.